Where are the men? Where are they? Modern women shame men to want the single life, to want to be single. But how and why? Let's get straight to the point to begin.
For men, shame is not a bunch of competing, conflicting expectations. Shame is one. Do not be perceived as what? Weak. I did not interview men for the first 4 years of my study. And it wasn't until a man looked at me one day after a book signing and said, "I love what you have to say about shame. I'm curious why you didn't mention men." And I said, "I don't study men." And he said, "That's convenient."
Of course.
And I said, "Why?" And he said, "Because you say to reach out, tell our story, be vulnerable."
Be vulnerable.
And before she continues, this next point is a point I've been using since I came across this video sometime last year. It's a stunning point. And for an old video, for an old TED Talk, this next point represents so much of modern society, not just dating on a whole, but men in dating and what a lot of men feel, whether they're single or they're dating.
"But you see those books you just signed for my wife and my 3 daughters?" I said, "Yeah." "They'd rather me die on top of my white horse than watch me fall down."
Be vulnerable.
"They'd rather me die on top of my white horse than watch me fall down."
I hope you're focused and on your square.
When we reach out and be vulnerable, we get the shit beat out of us. And don't tell me it's from the guys and the coaches and the dads.
Yeah, it's not about the coaches, the voices on the internet. No, this is something that men know in their day-to-day life.
Because the women in my life are harder on me than anyone else. So I started interviewing men and asking questions. And what I learned is this.
Die on top of my white horse.
The white horse metaphor is where this clip comes from. Yeah, it sort of represents your white horse, but you know, it's like, what do you do as a man when the white horse underneath you dies? It's like you're riding your white horse, you can't fall off it. No, it represents too much. If the horse is society, this modern world and life and everything, and as a man, you can't afford to fall off it.
Is the lord of all horses.
Die on top of my white horse.
Because in falling off your white horse, you're seen as what?
Weak.
Weak, yeah. We can't afford to be seen as that, as men, can we? No. Within ourselves as men, and in terms of dating, yeah? Finding a woman and eventually finding a wife. Yeah, you can't be seen as weak, can you? No. But we'll get back to this lovely woman in a moment, and more of the white horse metaphor.
I made this video talking about how women shouldn't be afraid of an alien invasion because they probably treat us better than men. What? And so many of the comments were of men saying that, "Oh, well, you should choose better men." Meanwhile, all the women understood what I was saying, which is not that I'm being treated badly by men. It's that women worldwide are being oppressed, raped, and unalived by men.
Okay, like many women understand your perspective, a lot of men understand the perspective when we say,
"Oh, well, you should choose better men."
even as men, to pick better. Because we're men, we're saying it. We know why we're saying it. You know, it's a sad and beautiful thing that a woman lying to herself for you, for men, is the best control to ever have over them. A woman's willingness trumps everything. So when we say to pick better, we know and understand a lot of men out here are kind of trash. We understand it. But a lot of the trashiness in a lot of men, the toxicity in a lot of modern men has been, you know, and does and is viewed as sexiness. It can't be seen as weakness, no.
Weak.
Because it's accepted as men to be seen as angry and confrontational, somewhat vicious. But so long as you can be tame and soft to her, and only her, I'm just saying, but carry on.
And it occurs to me that they cannot even conceptualize it, what it's like to live in a world like that. And they, in their infantile mind, had their heart broken by Sally Mae in junior high, and now suddenly they hate all women. So they project that experience onto women.
Okay, interesting. And yes, some men do exaggerate it, but I mean, come on. Some Sally Mays from back in the day were garden tools, weren't they?
Proper garden tool.
I mean, they grew up to be so.
Proper garden tool.
The point was proven, wasn't it?
Proper garden tool.
Yeah? But seriously, yes, men do hold on to a lot, but that proves a point in itself, doesn't it? A lot of men can talk about, oh, some chick that hurt them from back in the day, from school days. Some random chick from your past broke your heart, but it's like you still feel it till now. Yeah?
To this day.
That's not good. I'm not saying it's good, but a lot of men understand it. But the point that proves itself is, again, men are not seen as emotionally intelligent, are we? We're not allowed to be, are we?
Weak.
which doesn't make sense. Because for as much as women love romance and everything, who are the ones expected to be so romantic? Yeah? It's almost Valentine's Day. The pressure's on whom?
Because their worldview is so fucking self-centric. They cannot see past their nose enough to even consider what it's like to be another human being.
Really? Really? Some, yes. But you know why I see men as machines? As androids, the more sophisticated ones, replicants, is because that's how women seem to see us. Like the white horse metaphor.
For my white horse.
Women don't want men to fall off their white horse, do they? Doesn't matter if these women love you. Or so they say. You have to still be on your white horse. The horse could be dead beneath you, a corpse. You're riding a corpse, like some skeleton horse from Legend of Zelda or something. You get the point. But the point is you have to remain on your horse. You have to be a damn android on that corpse of a horse. Sounds like a lot, but the point is, as a man, you can't afford to be seen as weak. Even to the point where a lot of men are shamed so much that they call themselves alpha males. They have to reinforce it, don't they? With something, even if it's not real.
If you're unaware, we're in a sassy man apocalypse.
Of course.
For the women not being approached by men, it's not you, it's the men. And for the men, if the shoe don't fit, don't wear it. So let me give some of these men examples. And this is from my data and my research. I'm not making this up. This is true.
Okay. Oh, we got data and research.
A sassy man apocalypse.
Weak.
Yeah, but before she begins, the overall point so far is the pressure and expectation on modern men. Sometimes it can be too much. So much to the point where just being a single man just makes more sense. It is easier, in a lot of cases, more financially stable, you know? And above all else, peaceful. For all the pressures of being this android man on a white horse, it would still be more peaceful to be so by yourself, wouldn't it?
Apocalypse.
To tell you if you're part of the sassy man apocalypse. Okay. For one, if you ask, what do you bring to the table? Of course, you're probably the ringleader of the sassy man apocalypse. What do you bring to the table? How does this benefit me? How do you benefit me? What are you doing for me? Anything with me.
But I mean, come on. Hearing women talk nowadays, it sounds like they're saying,
What are you doing for me? Anything with me.
them. Me. It's all about them. But even like Lil Wayne said, what about me? What about me?
You have been infected by the sassy man apocalypse. Two, if you are not approaching women because you're afraid of rejection and you're just tired of the rejection, or you're tired of not finding what you want out of a woman and you feel like you're the prize and you should be chased, you're infected by the sassy man apocalypse.
Apocalypse.
Okay, but shame. Since we are talking about shame and men's fear of shame, that vulnerability that, you know, as men, we don't want to show and we're not allowed to have. Yeah. How a lot of women, you know, make sure we don't show our weakness and vulnerability.
Shame.
Yeah, it's quite common for men to feel shame and shamed for approaching, for making a move. Wrong time, wrong place. Do they know? They're just shooting their shot. However, the shame they feel.
Shame.
Because let's be honest, in approaching anyone, you have to let your own guard down. You have to be vulnerable, don't you? Yeah. And it's not so much fear. It's more the shame a lot of men get once they show women how vulnerable they can be on many levels in approaching and talking about anything that they feel.
Shame.
Interesting.
You're infected by the sassy man apocalypse. Now, if you're not approaching women because you're just not interested right now, you're working on you, that's a healed man. That's not a sassy man. That's a healed man.
Nice.
But if you're not approaching women because you feel like they should be approaching you, or they should come to you, or
they should.
You're just over women, but you want a woman.
Okay.
Shame.
Okay, she's got her notes and everything. Many things could be right at once. Everything you've just said could be right at once. Yes. Why not be a single, independent, android replicant man on your horse? The horse being living or dead, and be free. And if some lovely woman comes along and she's like, hey, why don't you mount me for a second? Look, whatever. Why not? But a lot of men have been shamed into just wanting to be by themselves. That's the overall point. They can't afford to be seen as weak. But if a lot of men were honest, nothing makes you more weak than a woman you care about.
Yeah, you're in the sassy man apocalypse.
Shame.
If you compare your woman to your mother in any type of way, you're part of the sassy man apocalypse. If your woman comes home from a long day at work and she comes and she doesn't want to cook dinner, and you say, my mama want to cook dinner. My mama worked 5 jobs, had five kids, and she cooked dinner. Sir, you're part of the sassy man apocalypse.
I get that point. But sometimes a man just wants a woman who just can do basic woman stuff. Yeah, traditional.
Are you screwing your mother? No. You're part of the sassy man apocalypse. You're infected. Your mind is gone. Those are just 3 things that I came up with in my research. I'm going to do some
3.
more. I'll get back to you guys.
Wow, look at that. Look at that. She's loading up her arsenal of sassy man points. Really? Again, you can't afford to be vulnerable as a man, can you?
Me.
Apocalypse.
It's like these women want to shoot you down with their points.
Another day, another car video, and today's video is about men. I just really get so irritated and, genuinely speaking, quite heartbroken when I look around and I don't see any competent men around me anymore. Men aren't men. They're not what they used to be. They're not what they were built and made for. Men used
Built? What do you mean? Okay, we get her point. We don't.
A machine.
She doesn't mean built like that. But again, the points are proving themselves, aren't they? The reinforced built thing we're meant to be. We're meant to be constantly moving, never give up, never break, never bend, never cease. I'm quoting something. I can't even think about what I'm quoting. But we have to be endlessly going, don't we? Until our own demise. But sometimes you think to yourself, how many women deserve that endless effort as a man? I mean, does any woman deserve me going so hard for her? Or I've got to find her, want to pay for her life, and go hard for her as well. Yet I can never cease my operation as a man.
Me.
It's programmed on horseback to keep riding.
used to build, now they whine. They used to lead, now they fold under pressure. You know, they ask, which is crazy to me, what does the woman bring to the table? Sir, do you even know how to build a table? Do you own a toolbox anymore? Do men still own toolboxes? You know? And I find it so heartbreaking because especially when I make a video like this, they'll be like, but what about the women? There's a lot wrong with the women. And we'll get to that in a different video.
I mean, at least you can admit it. I mean, that's the point. Come on, it is about balance, isn't it? It's not one-sided. It's not lopsided.
There's a lot wrong with the women.
Why do men ask what the women bring to the table? I mean, in some way, do a lot of men just feel so used and abused to the point where it's like, yo, look, I've got to protect myself. What do you bring? 50-50. Are you trying to use me? Are you trying to use me? But the question is, why do so many men feel like they're being used by so many women?
Video. But we're talking about the men now. There's just this level of incompetency that gets worse by the day. It increases by the day. And I see no end to it. So genuinely speaking, I don't think it's about women raising the bar anymore and raising their standards. I think it's...
But women lowered the bar. Men can say choose better because we can see women lowered the bar. Even if we benefit off, hey, I don't even have to even try hard in life. I can go live in a few women's houses. Hey, just keep my body in shape enough and provide that D. Provide that D.
There's a lot wrong with the women.
I mean, on one hand, you can't even blame men for being like that. You can just be a good F-boy nowadays, can't you?
The men have lowered the bar to hell. It's so low I can't even see it anymore. And the men, if you feel attacked by this video, I think you need to ask yourself why. Because genuinely speaking, this isn't an attack.
I mean, at this point, I think men are just so used to it. It's like, it's just another day, isn't it? It's not an attack anymore, is it? It's almost like the online trauma men feel every day by women's vicious words. It's become so normal, it sort of feels like love.
It's PTSD.
In a weird sense, doesn't it? Yeah, what do I mean? The only attention men are getting is when they're getting cussed out by women.
There's a lot wrong with the women.
Yeah, at least men are getting attention, aren't they? Yeah, cussed out, but hey, take what you can get. Damn.
Excuse me. This is a funeral for all the men this generation has lost. This is a funeral for the men who have allowed themselves to die.
Okay, so far women have spoken about alien invasions,
Because they probably treat us better than men.
apocalypses,
Apocalypse.
and funerals.
Who have allowed themselves to die.
And all of them are bad because of men. They haven't mentioned the bear. I didn't get a bear video, but I mean, let's throw him in.
Damn right.
Of course, why not? Why not? Again, got to stay on that white horse, haven't you?
This is a funeral for the men who have allowed themselves to die.
The white horse meaning and symbolism. A few brief points. The white horse has many symbolic meanings across cultures, including power, purity, freedom, and hope. That's deep, isn't it? And other interpretations. The phrase ride on a white horse is an idiom that originated from medieval legends and folklore, whatever. And there are many other historical meanings, but the point is,
Die on top of my white horse.
it's a show of power. It is a show of confidence. It can be interpreted as a view of masculinity. To be everlasting, to never cease, to never fold under pressure. But again, it means you can't even feel anything. You're not allowed to be vulnerable, can you? Are you?
I don't study men. And he said, that's convenient. And I said, why? And he said, because you say to reach out, tell our story, be vulnerable. But you see those books you just signed for my wife and my 3 daughters? I said, yeah. They'd rather me die on top of my white horse than watch me fall down. When we reach out and be vulnerable, we get the shit beat out of us. And don't tell me it's from the guys and the coaches and the dads. Because the women in my life are harder on me than anyone else. So I started interviewing men and asking questions. And what I learned is this. You show me a woman who can actually sit with a man in real vulnerability and fear, I'll show you a woman who's done incredible work. You show me a man who can sit with a woman who's just had it. She can't do it all anymore. And his first response is not, I unloaded the dishwasher. But he really listens, because that's all we need. I'll show you a guy who's done a lot of work. Shame is an epidemic in our culture.
And shame is so strong, isn't it? It's even to the point in the shame of catching feelings, of feeling anything. What with the mass amount of options we have nowadays are dating apps. Yeah, the internet, scroll, swipe, flick. And with all those supposed options, no one's finding each other. Yeah, an emptiness, a shame of being vulnerable, to be the first one to call, to text. Really? It's not even just the men who have become these, androids on horseback. But it's like they're just walking past. Hollow, entitled, high expectation. Me. Type women. They don't want to bring anything to the table. They don't feel like they have to. Because women are strong and tough nowadays, and
I am the table.
And men can't afford to be weak. Even if they're pretending, it's like they'd be bankrupt if they were.
And to get out from underneath it, to find our way back to each other, we have to understand how it affects us and how it affects the way we're parenting, the way we're working, the way we're looking at each other. Very quickly, some research by Mahalik at Boston College. He asked, what do women need to do to conform to female norms? The top answers in this country: nice, thin, modest, and use all available resources for appearance. When he asked about men, what do men in this country need to do to conform with male norms? The answers were always show emotional control, work is first, pursue status, and violence. If we're going to find our way back to each other, we have to understand and know empathy, because empathy is the antidote to shame. If you put shame in a petri dish, it needs 3 things to grow exponentially: secrecy, silence, and judgment. If you put the same amount of shame in a petri dish and douse it with empathy, it can't survive.
My favorite thing to say is that we're in a sassy man apocalypse. I was having a conversation with a guy today and we were talking about the sassy man apocalypse. He brought it up and he was like, women love to say that we're in a sassy man apocalypse. And I'm like, because we literally are. These men have attitudes. A lot of them are walking around like they're the prize. He raised a few points to which I will say 2 things. If I am the prize and I choose my man and my man chooses me, he is also the prize.
Yes, but the quality of man you're choosing nowadays, a lot of women are choosing, does represent the sort of woman she is as well. Because a lot of women complain about, dating some weird, trashy men. But let's be honest, they're sort of dating their counterpart, aren't they? If we're being honest.
I'm also winning. We're both winning. If I pick him, the man that I choose, he's gonna be the prize in the sense that he's the man that I want. He's the provider. He's my protector. He makes me feel secure. He makes me feel safe. He's all these things that I want in a guy. That also makes him the prize. Don't get me wrong. I'm also the prize and I'm providing whatever it is that he wants. I think it's important that we remember that relationships are 2-way streets. And just as much as you expect from somebody else, you have to be just as good of a partner to that person. I think that we lose that in translation a lot when we were speaking about like female empowerment and everything like that. I'm really crazy. I don't know what. Me and my friend both agreed on the fact that women are really out of their feminine now. And that's because we've been forced to be. We kind of put ourselves in the same playing field as men in the sense we're like, we want to be just as successful. We want to make just as much money. We're more than just a pretty face. We are
Okay, slippery hands. Butterfingers.
money.
But you see, here's a problem that I don't understand. No one's to say that women can't earn as much as men. live amazing lives. But it's like, why does a masculine attitude have to be added to that? Why do women make themselves just so tough and chewy in becoming so independent? That's what makes a lot of them so undateable now. It's like, why can't it be the success without acting like men? I mean, if women see success as just a masculine thing, I mean, that's not men's problem, is it? Is it?
Dependent. Unfortunately, it's put a lot of us in our masculine for just day to day, not even just business things, just in our relationships too. We approach dating in our masculine. We've become less soft. And I've seen that to be true for myself. I have to constantly remind myself to be in my feminine and to almost be a little bit submissive, to release control and to trust somebody and to be more vulnerable and open.
That's a good point. Interesting point, young woman. But it's an interesting thing nowadays that women shame each other for being too vulnerable with men.
Apocalypse.
In some cases for feeling too much for men, for liking men even. Descend to men, of course, but still absorb all the attention, affection, the treats and trinkets from men, but descend to them, but still use them. It's weird, isn't it?
It's definitely not easy, especially today where we have a lot of hyper masculine men, a lot of men who are triggering us. We are also triggering a lot of men by being too in their face. We're not taking from any men because we approach dating sometimes in our masculine, and then you have a guy who's already in his masculine. We have two masculines in a heterosexual situation happening. Now we're butting heads with each other because the females in the masculine, the males in the masculine, maybe even in this hyper masculine, and then he's like, what do I do? Should I flip into my feminine? And now he's sassy. So I think as important as it is to remember,
it doesn't really go like that. Obviously, that's some men. That's some men. Okay. We get what you're saying.
Because the females in the masculine.
But here's a point as well, a grand point. A lot of men do come across that. They're looking for the feminine woman, but they meet a lot of strong, independent women, which is, that's fine. But it's like, why is she so tough? She will not relinquish any power and be submissive enough to let me just be a man for a bit. So men will go seek other women to find that in. They may not find that. Some of them are like, okay, a lot of single mothers have that. My daddy. I don't want to be a stepdad to a single mother, you know? And a lot of men may realize in general, they may never get what they want. It is like an uphill struggle. And they just about have enough energy for themselves. So it's like, why not? Why not? Because let's be honest, falling in love with a woman is an effort, isn't it?
that guys should be putting us in our feminine. We also need to allow the space for men to be in their masculine. Dating is so crazy now. Dating is so hard now.
And the simple point is, a lot of men can be their most masculine in a peaceful environment. Sometimes when it's just them. The world is yours. Have a nice day.
Be vulnerable.
Because they probably treat us better than men.
Apocalypse.
Who have allowed themselves to die.